Alright, so this is my fourth discussion based on the reading assignments we had to do for this past week. I'm going to start with effective classroom management. We had to read chapter 8, which is pretty much, or it is the last chapter of the book, and it pretty much just covered on, or talked about how you should develop a classroom management plan in order to maintain and establish an environment conducive to both academic and social emotional learning. So again, the chapter just goes on to talk about certain things, and many of these, or actually all of these, the book has already covered. But it talked about physical design, about what type of atmosphere you're trying to create in your classroom. It talked about rules and routines and how you should establish both these, how you can either include your students in creating the rules, or you can do them on your own. About the importance of establishing routines so your students know what to expect or what to do in certain situations. That way you don't waste classroom time. It talked about relationships, relationships between you and the students, meaning the teacher and the students, or relationships between students. And then it talked about also engaging instruction. Again, how are you going to motivate and engage students in your lessons and your curriculum? And finally, it talked about discipline and how you're going to manage, if there's misbehavior. Because again, even though the book talked about preventing misbehavior, you will have to, there will be discipline problems where you will have to act on it. So it did talk about that. And that was pretty much chapter 8, just talking about developing a classroom management plan. Then we went on to reading What Should I Do? And this was chapter 6. Now, chapter 6 pretty much talked about what is right and what is best for our students. So, again, always thinking about, again, the book talked about different dilemmas that teachers face, right? And so this chapter is talking about the difference between doing what is right for our students and doing what is best for our students. Because at the end of the day, whatever decisions teachers make have consequences that impact their students' lives. So again, the whole book's talking about dilemmas you face, right? And while you're thinking about what is best for your students and what is right for your students, you're going to have to actually act on it. So the book goes on to talk about how after teachers make a decision, they have to act on it and how difficult this can be, because either way, there will be consequences. So they have to think about what they should do, what they can do, and what they will do. The next step that the book talked about in doing after, making a decision, acting on it, is reflecting on it. We're constantly told that we need to reflect on things, and this is one of those, because if you make a decision and say there's a certain consequence, maybe you can reflect on it and see what you can do differently the next time to maybe get a better outcome, right? So always reflect on the actions you decide to take. Finally, it talked about how we must learn from our own experiences as well as the experiences of others. And that's what pretty much the book is doing for us. We're reading, dilemmas that teachers have been facing that may be very similar to ones we will face as teachers. So again, it talked about the importance of learning from our personal experiences as well as other people's personal experiences. So finally, teaching the taboo, we had to read chapters 8 through 9. And so I'm going to start with chapter 8. Chapter 8 talked about the need to encourage creativity and curiosity in our classrooms. So again, we need to offer students instruction that is engaging and authentic. That way they can go to class eager to learn, even as eager as they do when they go to outsider activities, such as the slam poetry, which the book talked about, how students were able to go and write poetry and listen to each other. This was an outside activity that they were so excited to go to, and yet schools don't have this. So again, we have to create engaging instruction that has students wanting to go to school. Then it talked about how we need to stop patronizing student thinking, and rather than, again, patronize them, we need to allow them to question them, and we need to value their opinions. It's okay for them to question. It should no longer be an I feed you information and everything I say is correct and you just take it in. No, they should be able to question the norm, and we should be able to listen and learn from them. And then, so I liked this quote from the book: teachers ought to find ways to move their classrooms from being sites of invalidation to centers of community organizing, which is pretty much what I just say. I think it sums up the chapter perfectly. where it talks about, again, we need to have a classroom or develop a classroom in which students are free to share their opinions and where teachers validate those opinions. And then chapter 9 was pretty much just summarizing the whole book. It's the last chapter of the book. And again, it just talks about how we should teach the taboo and how we must question the norm, think of classrooms as places of possibility, and again, we must hear our students' voices. And that was pretty much it, for the reading for this week. Thank you.